So earlier today, Blizzard and the World of Warcraft team they put out a pretty big announcement. It deserved to be big enough to warrant like its own statement that Chris Metzen, who we knew was back at Blizzard in an advisory role, he's now back full time as what is called the executive creative director of the Warcraft universe. It's a big title with a focused role on the franchise that he had helped to build up of like a bajillion years ago. So I'm here for a couple things. I'm here to share my excitement at seeing what's to come over the upcoming whatever Warcraft things that are being guided by his hand. But he's not a designer necessarily or a game director. He's more of like the very broad big picture guy. Like he sets a sort of blueprint of how he wants gamers to feel, I suppose. And I guess the WoW team executes on that vision. But I'm just assuming what his exact role is going to be here. But there's one thing that I don't doubt about the guy. It's that Warcraft runs through this dude's blood. It runs in Metzen's blood. There's no narrative that we could say where, oh yeah, he's not being genuine. We can't usurp his love for this franchise. He can't just write off what he says as lawyers speak. But I'm not here to just talk about Metzen, although his announcement it did very much help me with this topic. I also want to talk about Dragonflight and its sort of its story, but the vibe that a lot of players have. Because lately there's been a lot of grumbling or like groaning, which is typical because, we're at the edge of a new season and a new expansion announcement. So what feels old feels like really old. Now there are players out there. I can't say how widespread this is, but some of these players, they just don't like how Dragonflight feels. I'm picking out a few examples, but some folks are like, it feels too Disney. Like it's so bright and happy, and there's too much feeling and not enough fighting. Like it doesn't have stakes, not cook stakes, but it doesn't have stakes. And Drakthir, they were supposed to be like big burly dragons and not these wimpy, skinny little lizards. And I'm going to invite trouble by saying this, but it sort of sounds like these kinds of players just don't think WoW is manly enough anymore. Like, ooh, what happened to big old ripped orcs versus humans with blood all over the place when the hot characters wore less? And now it's like, OMG, what the heck is this like girl power stuff, right? They're all covering up and the men are crying. Everything is so emotional. But I'm going to stop there because that's not what I'm here to specifically talk about. I do understand the feeling of Dragonflight feeling a little bit too lighthearted, maybe a little bit empty in some non-specific ways. Like it's not serious enough to feel like a regular Warcraft expansion, and it's not in a lot of ways. I don't blame anyone for feeling like this. I mean, after all, we came back from a situation where the Death God was attacking Azeroth directly, and we had to mitigate the damage to the world soul with our freaking bodies. And now here we are, we're watching dragons and their counterparts in like this emotional debate. WoW has dealt with a number of intense moments that aren't necessarily fighting, like maybe I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Crusader Bridingbad from Wrath of the Lich King, that comes to mind. Runus the Shamed from Legion also comes to mind. But I am going to share my personal angle of dissatisfaction in Dragonflight. Believe it or not, I am not perfectly happy with everything. I, like others, feel like there's something missing. And we all have our takes. And we're not going to be in total agreement with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to make my point very, very simple and easy to respond to. I've noticed in Dragonflight that I, as a player, don't really get to feel like a badass. And clearly I should elaborate. So part of my emphasis, part of my dissatisfaction with parts of Dragonflight is less about the story that goes on around me, as in like the quests and the dialogue and the cinematics. It's more on the story of me as a player, boots on the ground, the gameplay side of things. Like, what's the story of my character immersing into this world of Dragonflight? How did I grow into this world and, overcome the next great series of bad guys and bad girls because, equality, You gotta stress that Dragonflight has gone woke. I couldn't resist that one. Anyway, especially in Legion and later expansions, a lot of the game's focus has been on us, the champions of Azeroth. Now, funny enough, this was also a critique of mine, and now see how the tables have turned. So, like back in the day, we were what? Like we were the garrison commander. We were the High Lord, or the leader of our class order. We were the Maw Walker. And with that, from the expansion cell to the gameplay, we were sold on the ideas that our characters would obtain great strength and these amazing powers to make us feel kind of badass. I'm using a term like that on purpose because I think it's almost perfectly encompasses WoW as a pretty old game, so I'm going to use some old terms. Dragonflight was a departure of many things, and that includes the borrowed power bit, which a lot of players, I admit, were pretty tired of. I was pretty exhausted of it too. But you may or may not have noticed that we're not the central characters of this expansion, not by a long shot, especially when you consider how central our characters were, especially in Warlords and beyond. The borrowed power stuff, it was icing on the cake. There were things for us to work towards to empower us within the story, but the story itself made the players a very focal point. We were the ones at the wheel. Dragonflight kind of brings me back to a time in World of Warcraft where we would just follow NPCs around and then they'd be like, "Oh my god, champion, look, go take them out." And then we would, and then afterwards we'd see those characters develop, and we're just kind of watching from the outside. I don't feel like my character has grown during this expansion. Again, because I'm not the central focus, and I guess to a lesser extent because I didn't have like some powerful thing to work towards. I mean, I got to level 70. I got my talents and I got my professions up, and I completed my set bonus as it came along, and I got my dragon riding stuff. But have I grown inside the story? Has my renown turned into something like tangible that I can feel in game, or is it just cosmetic? So the dragons may have recognized my deeds on the Dragon Isles through quest texts and stuff, but they haven't exactly said anything about like, "OMG, you're so much stronger than you were before, Dragon Master." No, the MacGuffin that is the Oath Stones and the Aspectral powers, the opportunity to feel like a badass is reserved for not us. It's for them. And there are contradictions to my claims, I'm sure, but I'm trying to make a case that comparing previous expansions to now, the scales have tilted way outside our favor. Now, when you folks in the comments say, like, no, Dragonflight's bad because the devs didn't listen to us wanting like chunky playable dragons, or that it's too cutesy or whatever, I'm not trying to like take your feelings away or diminish them. But from listening and thinking of my own feelings, there's this other angle that I want to share, and I'd like you to consider if these thoughts of mine resonate with you even just a little bit, because maybe giving our characters like a bit bigger of a focus, giving us those badass moments, maybe that's the high that we've been missing, and the withdrawal kind of sucks, and it's just hard to realize. Now the story is important, I get it. I also think that the current discourse on social media and such is placing a bit too much emphasis on trying to make a darker and grittier WoW, and I'm afraid of what we'll see if that's all the team responds to. Like, I read it, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what players are really asking for. Dragonflight is about the Dragonflights, but maybe it's a bit too much about them. Like, what about us? We're trying to help. What about me getting something really cool and feeling badass? Is dragon riding abilities enough? For me, no. It's not stopping me from playing either, but it's got me feeling a little bit emptier, a little bit less involved in the world. And so we return back to Chris Metzen, because I'm not here to give you answers, really, but just a little bit of hope. Because I believe that Metzen has not forgotten what the heart of Warcraft is, while he himself has matured. He's grown older, and his experience reflect changes in a changing world that we also can't ignore. I'd like to think that with his help, that the WoW team can deliver the kind of experience that most gamers are looking for. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it necessarily has to be some dark storyline with like super manly men and girls with the big booba. But with lessons learned, the next experiences in Warcraft might feel a little bit more badass, at least if that's your thing. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy. Did I do this in one take? Did I? Oh my God. I'm going to celebrate this. Badass. That's me, motherfucker.